the way that we're going to start off is essentially I want to describe kind of where we started last week in terms of understanding the shift and the control keys with your mouse. If you hold down the control button, you can actually zoom in and out using your mouse wheel. If you hold the shift button and go up and down on that mouse wheel as well, it's going to go from left to right. So understanding that concept right there, I think is going to be really beneficial in terms of helping you in, being able to draw quickly and getting in and out of your drawings. Next up, you've got your toolboxes up here at the top. This is what we refer to as the ribbon. So we're going to start off in the View tab. So if I uncheck the grid button right here, that's how you can get your lines on the screen. That's very helpful. Also make sure that your ruler is set as well, and use that by clicking the ruler button. If you go down to the Design tab, you've got your orientation and choosing portrait and landscape, and then you can customize the sizing as well. So understanding just that basic layout can really help you be successful. Starting off, we're going to start with what we refer to as the pointer tool. The pointer tool is going to allow you to select, resize, and adjust and move around objects throughout your screen. So this is going to be very helpful, and the shortcut for that is Control-1. And I'm going to refer to a bunch of shortcuts, and if you want to know where they are, if you go to our website, and if you go, which is www.proquickdraw.com, and you go to Visio webinars, if you scroll down, you'll notice that there's a button right here that says download printout. If you click on download printout, we're going to give you a nice little copy that you guys can all print out and have at your house and put next to your mouse, and just utilize this as a nice little shortcut key to kind of help you out with just a couple of different things that we're going to discuss today. So as I said, Control-1 is the pointer tool. And now if you go to the right of that, you're going to see a rectangle shape. If you select that rectangle by left clicking, you can now draw on your screen and draw a rectangle. If you take that same object and if you draw at a 45-degree angle, it's actually going to create a square. As long as you stay on that plane of that 45-degree angle, it's going to drop in as a perfect square. One of the things that's very important in understanding how to move objects throughout Visio is understanding whether or not it has a fill to it. And what I mean by that is up in the upper right-hand corners here to the right of your pointer tool and shape styles, there's a fill bucket button. And if you choose that drop down, you can choose any custom color that you would like. But there's also an option here that says no fill. The reason that that is important is to understand is if I want to click and move this square that's got no fill, I have to click on the edge of that line and drag it from left to right. If you click on an object that has a fill, you can click anywhere within that object. The important thing to understand with Visio is that it's an engineering drawing software pretty much, and everything is going to be layered within that. So if you drag this layered white box, it's actually underneath my line, my square with no fill. And now if you take this object and if you bring it to front, it's on top of that square. So if you ever lose an object, use your bring to front and send to back buttons to be able to find if you've got something hidden in there. That's just an easy little trick to stay in line with understanding where your objects are. Next question I'll get is, well, Coach, how do you adjust the line? Well, let's say I want a thicker line with this square. So if you select that object, and if you go up to your line tool, there's a drop down where you can choose the line color that you would like. And then there's also a further enhanced section for weight, dashes, and arrows. So now if I go to the weight of this object, and if I continue to adjust it, I can drop it up to a 3-point, and now you've got yourself a nice thick box. If you go to that line color, you can choose a blue line. But first you have to select that object. So notice how I tried to change it to blue, but nothing happened. Select that object, choose your line color, and then it'll adjust that line as well. One of the other things we talk about is the end cap of lines. If you'll notice, there's a nice little etched out curve to this 90-degree angle. If you select that object and go to line options, there's going to be a new format shape box that pops, and on the right side you'll notice that there's a spot right here that says cap type. If you choose the drop down and you choose square, it's now going to square off that line for you. And I personally like to use a squared off line when drawing my run blocks. It's just a little thing, but you want your drawings to all look uniform. So find that technique and find that line that you really like and stick with it with your drawings. Next up, outside of my box, my rectangle tool, there's a drop-down menu. And from here, you can choose an ellipse, a line, a freeform arc, or a pencil. We're now going to go to the ellipse tool. And then if I drag and drop, I've dropped that blue line, which I've defaulted, which I'll talk about that in a second. So if I choose a black line and I've got it rolling here, well, now it's the same thing as a square. If you want to create a perfect circle, drop that line down at 45 degrees and it's going to stay on that frame and on that plane. And once you drop and release, you've now created that perfect circle. Next up, outside of that ellipse is the line tool. To me, the big thing is the shortcut for the line tool, which is Control-6. If you can learn that when you first start off with Visio, it's going to save you an incredible amount of time because you're going to have to go to the line tool and draw, go back up to your pointer tool, and then make your adjustment, move it, and then you need to select it again to draw. Whereas if I go Control-6, I get my line, I draw my post route, I go Control-1, I get my select tool, I go Control-6, and then I can draw another line again. So having the ability to switch back and forth with those shortcuts is going to save you a bunch of time. But going back to the line tool, you can click and drag, and as you drag, it's got your first starting point and then your end point. Now, if you want to add to that line, let's say I want to draw a dig route. Well, if you start going vertical, and then it's going to leave a little bubble right here at the top. If you left-click that bubble again and drag it to the right, you've thus created one solid line that's a dig route. If you wanted to do the same thing for a post, you click and drag, release, click again, and then release to create that drag. If you want to start creating different shapes with this line tool, you can do that as well. So if you want to create a triangle for your defense, you just draw and connect all three of those points. And then now, once you go Control-1, that's its entire object right there. So now you can start to draw custom objects as well, rather just than circles and squares. The other thing that's really helpful about these lines is if you've got a line, let's say that you wanted to draw a type of block, which is going to be a combo. So I want to double and use that as my double signal. And then I want to go back up to the linebacker. And I'll show you some more examples of that. But just understanding the different abilities that you can use that line tool to make some drawings. Next up is the arc tool, which I'm going to skip freeform because that's kind of just like a pen, which I didn't really like when using it. So I'm just going to skip that. You can play around with it on your own. But now I'm going to go to the arc tool. The arc tool to me is one of the better things in terms of drawing fade routes. So if you want that outside release, you can draw it that direction. If I want an outside release going to the right, you want to hold down the mouse and left click and then drag and rotate that shape to create that arc going in that direction. If you were to happen to make an arc going in the wrong direction and you've got this shape here, well, rather than releasing and going Control-Z, which is the edit undo button, if you make that drawing and you make a mistake, do not release the left click and drag it right back to the center. And now you'll see that there's only going to be a plus sign. And now you can make that shape to recreate your arc without having to go Control-Z or delete anything. The next part about your line tool is choosing your end cap. So I've got this dig route right here. Well, I want to choose an end cap. So I want a nice little arrow associated with that drawing. So if you grab your pointer tool or go Control-1 and then left click that object, you can now go up here to your line options, go down to your arrows, and then you can choose whichever end cap that you would want. So pretty much what I've always used is going to be a smaller arrow for my pass concepts. And then any type of deal that's a linebacker run fit, I may use a dotted line at the edge. So it's up to you however you want to do that. And if you go to more arrows, it's going to do the same thing and pop your format shape on the right side. And then you can choose that end arrow type. And there's a lot of different custom values in here as well. The first question I get is, well, is there a line, an end cap for blocking? The answer is no. You have to kind of customize that. But I always just went ahead and went Control-6. And then I always zoomed in really tight to where I wanted my drawing. And then I just capped it off on my own. So that way I controlled my cap. So if I wanted a solid base block, you could go there. If you wanted a scoop block, to show on the back side, you could angle it towards the back end as well. I just always felt more comfortable drawing it on my own rather than having to go the hard way. So that was the arc tool as well, along with the line. And the last one is the pencil tool. The pencil tool is really good if you're trying to draw a blitz. So if you've got your start point and your end point, and if you drop down and choose the pencil, there's a little dot that drops in the center of that line, and then you can bevel it out a little bit to create that object to where now you've got a little blitz path that you could go out the C gap right there. So that's just one of the couple examples that I'm going to get in and show you guys in terms of using those tools. Where we want to go right now is I'm going to start off by essentially building a couple templates for you. As you're rolling, we'll build those templates, and then we're also going to start to create objects as we go on. So if I want to create an inside zone block, I can add that to a stencil. If I want an outside zone block, stencil. And what I mean by stencils is on the left side of the screen here, you'll see that there's a shapes area. Well, if you go to more shapes and drop down and choose the new stencil, you can create your own stencil by right-clicking and saving as. And now if I say basic FB shapes, so basic football shapes, I want to save that in my shapes folder. So once I shape that, now I've got an object area where I can start to drop in custom shapes. So right now I'm going to just create a nice little a 2-up box that we can use to draw a couple plays in. So the first thing you want to do is go up here and go to your line tool. Double check to make sure that your line is the color that you want. So currently the line that I've got chosen is blue with that thickness. Well, I want to set my line to be a certain parameter. The first thing you want to do is go to the pointer tool and then deselect an object. So you want to click off to the side of the screen where there's no object selected. From there, you go to your line tool. You choose your color. So I want to default with a black line. And then since I'm going to create a border for all my drawings, I essentially want a 2 1/4 or a 3-point line right there just to create a nice border to create some separation between my drawings. So now I'm going to go Control-6 and then just draw a nice little line going here across the top. And now you can see that there's a good little thickness to it. We go Control-1, select that object and delete. Go Control-6 again. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating the outside shape of my box, and you're probably wondering, well, why didn't you just grab the rectangle tool to do this? The reason being is I want to leave these shapes on the side as separate entities because now I'm going to create a 2-up box. So I'm going to draw a line that splits this into 2 sections. Why didn't you draw it down the middle? Well, I'm not a big math individual, so I'm going to select the top line, the middle line, and the bottom line. And because it's a nice little software for engineering, you can go up to the position button and choose distribute vertically. And now you've created 2 drawing boxes that are identical in terms of space. So now once I've got these 2 different areas, I may want to create a title section in here as well. So what's great about the shapes within Visio is you don't always have to drop a text box. If I choose a rectangle and I drop it in just a little bit, I can now type in the title area and use my shortcut to increase my text. And now I've got a title area that's at the top. Well, let's say you want that same title area down below. Hold the Control key, click and drag, and then it duplicates that object. So now you've got title area for play 1. And then down below that, you've got your title area for play 2. But my drawings are going to be the exact same size within these shapes. So now we go right back to our drop quick shapes here. If I grab everything and go Control A for select all, I want to hold the Control key and then drag and drop this box into my quick shapes area. And now I've got myself a 2-up template. So now anytime I want a 2-up template for my drawing, I go to my basic football shapes menu, I left click, and then I can drag and drop that onto my page, and you've created a nice little template here for yourself. The next thing, once you've got that object, it comes in as an entire group. So now it's just one object total, but I essentially want to split these objects back up to where they're individuals. So I've selected the drawing, go to group, and ungroup and hit OK. Now they're individual objects, and now I can delete out my title box. Now the reason I'm deleting out my title box is I want to create a landscape 4-up drawing. So I'm going to go to my design, orientation, and choose landscape. And then if you refer to that sheet, Control R is my rotation. So now if I drop that object in the corner, well, I've now got a 2-up, that's a landscape. And now I want to just drop in another line going across the center and go Control 1. And now I can grab these objects, go back up to the home button, position vertical. Well, now you've got yourself a nice little 4-up. You get your rectangle tool, you drop in your title for play 1. I hold down the Control key and I left click and drag. Here's my box for number 2. Here's my box for number 3. And then there's my box for number 4. Control A to select everybody, click and drag, drop it in. Now you've got yourself a 4-up template. So I'm going to stay within this 4-up template, and now we're going to get into the basic shape drawings in terms of football stuff. So utilizing that Control 6 to draw those lines and create those boxes, you can start to create an 8-up, a 16-up, whatever you want in terms of that. Drop in different text boxes. So you may have a 1-up up top with a chart down below for players X, Y, and Z, alignment, responsibility, coverage check, just different things like that. But just understanding how to use the line tool and the position tool can really keep that organized and make your playbook look really clean. First, I'm going to start off in this left box, and we're going to build out an entire formation and then turn it into a run play. So what I want to do is I want to go into this box, and I've selected this text, and I'm just going to go to gun, spread twins, right, hit the enter key to drop down to the next level, and go inside zone versus over cover 4. So now the first thing I need to do is I need to draw my center. So I get my square tool, I draw my center. I want to keep it just like that, except however, I want to go to this object. And like I said before, I want that square end cap. And then I don't necessarily want my line thickness to be that wide. So I chose a 1-pointer. Now I want a circle. I want to create my guards. So all I'm going to do is draw my circle in the same exact area as that offensive line at the center. Go back to my line, change my weight to 1 point. And now you've got yourself a nice little uniform center and left guard. So once you create those 2 objects, do exactly what we did before. I'm going to put a C in this text box for the center, hold the Control key, drop them into my shapes, and now I've got a center. Well, if I've got my left guard, and you'll notice, hey, the text is too big to fit that box. So if you go up to your font area and decrease that font size, it's now going to drop it, and you can put it right there in the center. And then the next little Visio trick that I want to show you guys, and I should have done it with the center, so I'm going to delete him out, is if you highlight your objects and go up to the paragraph button, text block, and this is in our advanced feature as well, but in terms of a basic and beginner, if you learn how to do this, it's going to make you less frustrated with your drawings and why objects aren't centering. So you'll change your margins, and the way I did that, I'll do it again. Let's go to paragraph, check the box, text block, and make sure your margins are all set to 0. So now the reason for that is if I shrink this box, that center is going to stay in the middle of that object. If you have that thing offset to the right, when this shrinks down, your center actually kicks it out to the right. And if you're drawing small objects, it takes a while to get that figured out. So I've got my center, and then I'm going to add the left guard, but I'm just going to call him a player. And the reason is now I can drag and drop that left guard in here. Well, now I've got my left tackle. Now I've got my X receiver. Well, now I'm going to highlight those 2 objects, hold down the Control key, click and drag. And now I've adjusted. I've got my right guard, right tackle. I'm going to drop in my B back, hold down the Control key, and now I'm just clicking and dragging. And instead of having to later on, if you want to start moving shapes, if you wanted to swap your backs for A and B, there's no reason to drag the A and put the B back here and then the A. Just change the piece of text that's in the middle. And all I'm doing is I'm left clicking on that object and just typing in it as well. So if you've got your Y set there, you've got quarterback, A back. All right, I'm going to go out here, create my slot, create my Z. And now the next thing I want to do is I want to highlight all of those objects. So all the players that are on the line of scrimmage need to be at the same level. So if I select all those objects at once and I go up to the align button and I choose the top section, it's going to adjust all those objects and even them out. And then I'm just going to select my center and move them up just a hair using the arrows on my keyboard. Well, now you've got yourself a solid little offensive line here. That's a 6-point font. I'm going to make sure my center's the same at 6, so we're all uniform. So there's boom, boom, boom. So now I've got a nice little formation set in here. Once you have that entire all 11 offense, hold down the control key and drop them in. Now you've got your offense created. Now we're going to start drawing our defense on the back end. Excuse me. So I'm going to go up here to my text box, which is in my tools section. So I'll choose the text and I'll drop in and I'm going to put an E in there for the end. And then one of the things I like to do is just shrink your text a little bit, double click that object and make sure you go to your paragraph text block and make sure that there's zeros across the board. Now I'm going to take that end and go defensive player. So now I've got that end in a 5 technique. I'm going to drop in. I've got my nose. Okay, create my tackle for the 3. My rush end is the 5 technique. I'm going to highlight all 4 players, align, top. Hold down the control key, drag and drop. Now I've got my defensive line. Hold the control key and select those objects, click and drag. Now you've got the Will, the Mike, the Sam, and then a corner. Hold down the control key, create your free safety, create your strong safety, align those guys on the top. You've got your center, you've got your corner outside as well. I'm going to align all 3 shapes right here, and then I'm going to adjust my Sam outside the box. We'll stack our backers right there. Select all 3 objects, align top, so now they're even across the board. Now you've got yourself a good-looking defense. So now you highlight and select everybody. Hold the control key. Now you've got defense. Now hold down the control key and select everyone. Now you've got yourself a full 22. So just by building out those couple shapes that I did, I've got a 2-up template, a 4-up, a center, an offensive player that's a circle, an entire offense, an entire defense, defensive player, D-line, and now a full 22. So once you've got those objects, you can start building out all of your other boxes. So if you just drag that full 22 in here, you've got this box ready to go and you're up and rolling. So now you can just start making quick adjustments and drawings. So now we're going to get into our drawing our gun spread twins right, inside zone versus cover 4. So the first thing I want to do is I want to adjust the strong safety on top of the S. Select the S receiver. Select the strong safety, go to align, and now choose center. Now what you've done is that strong safety is directly on top of number 2. Same thing with the corner out here. Choose the X, choose the corner, align, hit the C key for center for your shortcut. Align, center, boom, boom. Now you want to apex the Sam off the S receiver and the next man inside. So I'd choose the tackle, the Sam, and then the S receiver. Position, distribute horizontally, and now that Sam linebacker is directly apexed off of 2 and the next man inside. Next thing that we always get is, well, coach, I want to show a 5 technique here on the shade. So if you go to Control 6, remember earlier how we discussed we can draw lines and to create different shapes? Well, if I draw that line going straight down the center, then I go Control 7 to get my arc tool. I can now create that shade technique. And then if you go to your line, I want to make sure that my weight is 1 point to match everybody else. I go to my fill and I make it black. Well, now you've got yourself a little shade tech that sits right there. Do our dusty little secret, hold down the control key, drop it over. Now you've got a shade technique. So if you wanted to take that shade, show your 2-eye, you could go Control H to flip that as well. And then that'll drop that in for you. And now you're up and rolling. So now you've got all your shade techniques in there as well. So since it's the run drawing, I'm just going to leave this as is. Well, now I'm going to go up to my pointer tool. Whoop. Sorry about that. Go up to
Kevin.
my pointer tool. You there, any?
Yeah, I just want to interrupt because I think there's a very pertinent question at 823 from Coach Nutt. If you could teach them how to freeze their paper. Look at that 823 question. When I drag a shape off of my piece of paper, it's been adding another piece of paper. I'm sure the setting is easy, but I can't find it.
Yep. So there's an arrow up here in the top left-hand corner that's a little jut out. It says expand the shapes window. If you click that window, you'll have your shape section. Then go to more shapes, new stencil, and then you'll have this menu, and then you can adjust the sizing and framing of that. Okay. All right. So next up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a nice little zone concept. So I want to draw a zone going to the left. So I want to put my A back on the right side. We're going to kick out the rush. We're going to zone up to the mic. We're going to zone the 3, double here, work up, and then zone out on the end. So I'm going to start from left to right. First rule of drawing run game. Zoom in to where the only thing you see are the 2 objects that you need to draw with. So now I'm going to go up to my pointer tool. And then I want to make sure I've defaulted that. So I want to make sure that my line is going to be black. My weight is set to 1. So I want to match the framework of my players. And then go to that line and make sure your dashes is solid. Now I go Control 6. And I'm going to grab just inside that left tackle, go vertical, go up. And now I'm going to make that drawing and cap it off right there at the top. Well, the thing is about my line is now I've got that weight and it's still set at 3. So obviously I didn't have an object that was deselected. Next up, I want to grab that line. I want to go to my cap type and make it square. So now you've got yourself a solid looking little run block scheme right there. However, that line is just a little bit too big. So I'm just going to make that adjustment. So now I've got a good little inside zone block. I can hold down the control key, and now I want to zoom in and grab both of those objects, drag and drop it, and now you've got a zone block. Next up, you've got your 2-eye, so you want to double and work up to the will. So now I'm going to draw a double team, so I want to go Control 1, make sure I got my line set. So go to my line tool, pointer tool, line, weight, choose 1. So now I can go Control 6. Now I want to show a double team. And all I'm going to do that is just draw a nice little crease right there that shows a double. And then all I have to do is continue and carry that line vertical and end it right there as well. So now I can go Control 1, choose that cap type, make sure it's square. Now I can hold down the control key, take that, zone, double. Well, now my center is going to be the same thing, except he's going to overtake that nose. Well, I've already drawn that zone block. So just drag it from the left side of the screen and adjust it to where you need to. There's your nose. Bam. Now you've got your right guard who's got a 3, he's got a 3 tech on him. So it's a zone double working up to the mic. And then now back here on the backside, you've got your 3 technique that you're trying to overtake. So there's your zone as well. So once you've got those objects, one of the things I like to do is bring to front. So I want to select the entire offensive line, go up to my button that says bring to front, and now what you've done is you've hidden the beginning of that blocking scheme, and now you've adjusted it to where your offensive line is always on top and it looks really clean. So now from here, I need a nice little kick out going up onto the rush. Go Control 6. Draw it from here to here, boom. Adjust that end cap to make sure it's square. Select both of those lines, hold the control key, boom. Now you've got yourself a kick out block. Now I need my quarterback tailback action. Control 6, You can show a little flat step going here and then draw that line going off vertical to show that that's going to hit on the front side of that nose. So once you're done with that drawing, you go up to your line, arrows, and then you can choose whichever arrow you would like. Now, one of the things that I think is really helpful within Visio is the dashed line capabilities. So let's say that you want to show, hey, tailback, you're going to hit the front side of the nose, or you're going to cut right back behind that as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add another arrow here showing that zone going vertical, except now on my line tools, I'm going to go to the dashes and choose a nice dashed arrow right there. Go to my line and choose my arrow end cap as well. So now you can show that run play has got two different types of going off that zone. So utilizing that dash can be very helpful. So now I just want to create a nice little handoff tool. So that's typically the way we used to show it, was just two lines together to essentially create an equal sign. So there's my handoff, and then I can go Control-6, and then you just show that your quarterback carrying out that fake. So now I go line, arrows, choose that end cap as well. So now you've got your toolbox created, and you've got 1, 2, 3 different blocking schemes created right there. Well, now we want to show the perimeter game. So if you're an RPO team, and let's say you were reading that rush end and you want to throw the bubble game out here, the first thing is, well, I'm going to take my kick out block because that's the same exact shape. Well, now I can rotate that shape if needed and drag it right there, or you can go Control-6 and draw yourself a nice little receiver screen block. Cap type, I can go square, make that same, boom. Now I go down here, wide receiver block. Well, now I want to show my bubble game. The best way, in my opinion, to show a bubble is if you go Control-6 and Control-7. Control-7 is that arc tool. You draw that arc going down here towards the bottom of the screen, and then you can draw it going back out vertical and going upfield. Now you go to your line tool, you've got your arrow, you choose that arrow you like, Control-1, Control-Shift-F to bring the front for that S receiver. Now you're showing bubble on the perimeter. And then up top, you just may want to run them off to show a little fade action. So you grab that arc tool with a Control-7, line, arrows, go back out. Now I can go Control-1 and add in my fade. Come back over here, and now I can add in that bubble game. So essentially, as soon as you're rolling and you're making these drawings, you're just trying to add as many different little features as you can to that toolbox. So that way you're not having to reinvent the wheel and have to draw everything again. So right there.
Can I interrupt again?
Yes, sir.
So I didn't do a very good job of explaining that question from Coach Nutt. You know how if you move an object off of your locked piece of paper, it'll start a second page?
Correct.
Coach would like to lock that so it doesn't start a second page.
Okay. If you go up to the design button, there's a button right here that says auto size. Uncheck that box, and now it's going to lock that page. So if you've got any object that goes outside the framework of your page, it's not going to auto size to kick that back in. It's just letting you know that you're only working off one drawing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So next up, boom, I've drawn that inside zone. Now we just want to draw another little scheme. So I'm going to go up here, grab my title area, and go gun spread, twins right, power versus over, cover 4. So since we've already got our full 22, there's no need to redraw that. So I just drop it right back on the page, and now I've got my all 22, my power versus an over front. So now just go back up here. Once that's all grouped in together, you just want to go to that shape and go to ungroup and hit OK. Now everybody's their own entity. So now I can slide everyone over. And adjust my 3 technique as well. Okay, so now we've got our power game. First thing is I want to kick out the rush. So I've got my kick out block. Drag and drop it. I want to Control-Shift-F and bring my Y to the front. Next up, I want to double the 3 technique. So I'm going to go to Control-6. I've got my double team. So I'm going to draw my line, Got my end cap, boom, make sure it's squared. Draw your line here as well. So there's my double. Now, one of the things I also like to do is within your rules, hey, we're going to double the 3 technique to the backside will. Well, now I just want to do the same thing with our dashed line that we showed before. So now I go right here, go to square. I select this line options, dashes, and now I've got a dotted line showing that we're going to double the 3 back to the will. Next up, sorry, forgot to add the double team to my toolbox. Now I go Control 6, and I just need a back block here on the nose. So go Control 1, and now I'm just going to adjust that to where it's off the end. Cap type is square. Make that adjustment. I accidentally brought, want to add that back block. Okay, and I'm going to show the pulling guard here in just a second. I want to hinge now with the left tackle. So I'm just going to draw inside, go straight vertical, kick it back to the left, and then add my end cap. And now you've got yourself a nice looking little hinge here. There's my square. Bring it back in. Now I've got a hinge block. Okay, so now here's the tricky one. So now you've got your pulling guard. So we're going to pull and wrap for the mic. A couple different ways you can do this, but to me the easiest is go Control 7 to grab that arc tool, round it to where he drops back. So you want to kick it back going towards the center, and then get that arc tool going vertical again to where it's up here towards the mic. Control 6 on that line, and then you can extend it and then draw your end cap as well. As well. Now I'm going to grab that entire line, hold down the Control key, and then wrap for mic. Now I want to take my entire offensive line, Control-Shift-F, bring them to front. One of the other tricks that I would always do for our scout team is essentially if I had a pulling guard, I may make the mic linebacker an orange color, and then you may want to make that pulling line orange as well, especially from a scout team perspective. To me, I just think that's something that's really helpful to separate those lines, especially once it starts getting in here. We've all seen the defensive coordinator with 70,000 scribbles on there, and then your scout offensive line looks at you all cross-eyed, and you don't have an answer for them either. So definitely just use those little colored coding features to help out your players. So now you've got that power game. So now I can go Control 6. And then he's straight downhill. You've got that line out there as well. Now I can select both of those objects. Go down to my line tool, choose my arrows. So now you've drawn that nice little power game. Well, let's say you still want the bubble concept. So you go bubble, drag and drop, wide receiver block is up here. And then you've got your fade technique as well. Well, maybe you want to go slant on the backside. So if I go Control 6, and if I draw that line going straight vertical and then kick it inside, Control 1, well, I've already got a bubble game over here with that end arrow. So if the shortcut for this is our Format Painter tool. So if I go Format Painter after selecting that bubble game, and now I click on the line for the slant, it's going to convert that line to the same end cap as well. So that way you don't always have to go up to line and bring that in. So the Format Painter tool is a huge, huge help in terms of drawing pass routes and concepts. So now I've got that slant on the backside as well. So what we did is we just drew 2 blocking schemes, and we've added all of those different blocks right there. The one I forgot to add was my backside. Okay. So right there, you've been able to essentially create all those different drawings. Now, once you start getting more advanced, you essentially want to create a stencil for your offensive line blocking scheme. You may want to start a new stencil for your pass concepts. So if you go up to more shapes, new stencil, it creates a new area. Right-click, Save As, and go Pass Concepts. Make sure it's in your My Shapes folder, and click Save. Well, now you can start taking those concepts and drop them in here as well. So that way, if you've got more than rolling through it, or, you know, your DB coach and your wide receivers coach, you guys should be using the same stencils, you know, especially if you're in high school, your kids are on both sides of the ball. Make things uniform so that way they don't have to question it. But going back, so we've got our basic shapes right there that we've kicked in. So now we've drawn a nice little run game. The next area I want to get into is for the defensive guys. So that way this isn't always just an offensive clinic. So we're just going to go with a nickel. We'll go NCAA blitz, the most common one, and then call it 3-field. So now I'm going to take that full 22 drawing that I have, and then the nice shortcut for the defensive guys is going to be Control J. This is going to allow you to flip that drawing, and now you can look at it at a different perspective for the defensive guys. And then if you go Control H, it's going to flip that drawing on the hash as well. So if I go Control H, I've now made it to where it's going to be a blitz off the left side. So now you go right back to your group, ungroup, and hit OK. Well, if I had a nickel defender over here, I can drag and drop them. But now if I just go to that Sam linebacker and change it to a money sign, now you've got that nickel backer that you just added as well. So that way you can either change it on the text or you can drag and drop that as well. So now I've got this nickel pressure. So we're going to draw the edge pressure, slants going across the front, and then a rounded mic. And then we're going to show how to draw your pass landmarks. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show my defensive line slanting out towards the front. So I'm going to go Control 6, draw my slant tool. So I want to get just a little bit vertical, and then I want to take that line and go right through the outside hip of that guard. I go up to my line, I go to my arrows, and then you may choose a different one that's on the defensive side of ball. So now if I go right there, I can drop that in and go slant. Well, now if I need to cross face with that 3 technique, I've got the same object. I've got the same object with that nose. However, the nose on this blitz is going to be what we call a cop technique. So I want to contain on the pressure. So if I go cop, Control 1, and then I just shrink that text a little bit to help that out. If you don't have enough room, you can just drag it out right there to have that text box, and now you've got cop on there as well. So you can start to put in your rules for your guys as well. So once I've drawn that, now I may go, hey, I want to draw a red line to show my edge pressure. So I'm going to go up here to my pointer tool, choose my line, go back to the pointer tool, and now I want to make my line color red. Go Control 6. And I want to show them just creeping up off the edge right there. So you can make that as nice and uniform as you want. So if you just go vertical, bring it up, however you want to make that thing look, and then you can draw that edge pressure coming off the end. Go to your line tool, arrows, choose that defensive line, hold down the Control key, click and drag and drop. Now you've got your edge pressure. Well, now I want to take the mic, and I want the mic to wrap around the hip of that rush as he slants inside. So we talked about the pencil tool earlier. Well, I'm going to take my line and draw it straight down the middle of that guard. Now I'm going to go up here and grab my pencil, and it drops that line in the middle of that shape. Well, now I can bow out that line and essentially create a nice crisp bend to it. Now I can go to my Format Painter tool, which I like this line. I can go Control-Shift-P, change the end cap to that, and now you've got yourself a nice little blitz. Then you can hold the Control key, bring that in, and go Mic B. So now you've drawn that blitz, so you've got a nice little pressure. Well, let's say that you've got this same pressure, but it's out of dime, it's out of 40 tech, whatever, it's out of the 3-4. Just add that entire pressure right there. So now whenever you need it, you just drop in, and then you can ungroup those objects and adjust them and move them around as well. So now next up, I'm going to go back and go to Control 6. If I've got an end that's going to drop, I may go Line Tool and make them blue, Control 1, and then drop that and go first outside of 1 or maybe 1 to 2 curl, whatever it is that you're working. and you're just defining that value out. So now I can hold down the control key, drop that in, and go 1 to 2 curl. So now you've got that. Now you've got that shape. So anytime you want your responsibility for whoever's dropping from 1 to 2, you've got that in your toolbox. Go to my line, go to my arrows, same thing. I've got that drop as well. So now I may want to show a roll technique. So I want to roll cover 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my arc tool, and I'm just going to draw a simple little arc technique, and I'm just dropping and dragging that shape to create just a little bit of a roll technique here. And then you go Control 6, and then you've got that line. So now I've got that arrow, and then I can rotate. And now you've got your 1/3 roll right there. So I'm going to grab that 1 to 2 curl and just change that to a 1/3 technique. So now it's a 1/3, and now using our duplicating features, I'm able to take that line as well and show just a nice little rotation here. And now instead of 1 to 2 curl, you may have a 3 flat to 2 flat defender, however you want to make those labels. So now you're just showing that roll technique now here towards the middle of the field, which once you've run out of space, you can just kind of adjust it and make sure it's, typically the way you want it. So like we discussed, it's just all about building out those objects where you can just drag and drop and everything's uniform. So that way when your players see this object, they know, hey, we're rolling 3 anytime I see that on my diagram. So once you start getting more advanced and as the year goes on, you don't necessarily have to drop in those lines every time for your guys. He may be dropping off 3. So now you've got yourself just a nice little NCAA blitz deal that you've added those pressures to that left side as well. The last one I'm going to show you, and I'm going to roll through pretty quickly because we're starting to run out on time, is essentially I've got a field on another diagram. So I'm just going to go Control C and then paste that field within this box. So now I've got myself a nice little field that I've dropped into the center of this diagram, and now I want to start drawing a pass concept. So if you've got your players from before, you can just drag and drop them on the screen. You can adjust them, or if you just want to show your backs for a little skelly deal. And all I'm doing is just dragging and dropping. Got your Y. Nope. Yes, and I'm going to show you how quickly you can draw your pass concepts with this. And then I'm going to drop my center right in here as well so you guys know that the ball's on the left side and on the left hash. So as I've got this concept, well, I just want to draw a nice little levels concept using my Format Painter tool. So if I go to Control 6, I really don't care what my line looks like right now. I'm just going to draw a nice little a vertical right here. I'm sorry, levels concept. So I'm going to draw a post. So I go Control 6, get up to 10, boom, I've got my post. Okay, I'm going to draw my dig and then go Control 7. I've got my crossing pattern, and then I go Control 6, and then I've got my outside release here as well. So I've got this levels concept, but I want my lines to look exactly like they do on my other drawings. So if I drag and drop a fade concept that I have here, I can go to Format Painter and then start selecting all of these objects and quickly change how I want that drawing to look. So now I've drawn a little levels concept here in about 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it was. And I've got the same uniform looking lines as I do in my other drawings. And just that way, it's just a whole nother consistency. But being able to drop those in and be able to show it quickly, I think is really essential. I just looked over and I saw the shade technique. We created that earlier. So, yep, you can drop that in. You've got your 2i. You know, you may have a 3 here on the backside as well. So the answer is yes, you can drop those in. So being able to utilize those, I think, is really beneficial. If you don't have a field template, I've got a college, an NFL, and a high school one as well. If you guys would like to email me, my email is kevin@proquickdraw.com. If you don't remember that, I can put it in here as well. And then there's also a button on our Visio webinars that shows you where to email the host. But we've got that drawing created here, and now I essentially want to just show you how Pro Quick Draw works for the last couple minutes. And we're going to create the same exact drawing, but just a whole lot quicker in terms of how we can do it. So if I go to Control N, I've created a new template. Now from here, I'm going to go to the toggle panel, and this is going to host my library of plays on the right side of the screen. If I go up here to select template, we can choose a template that we're going to provide for you that you can then customize. So if I choose a 4-up landscape, which is 4-up L-DT, hit the update button, it's going to draw my box. So now I can go change that. This is my webinar install. So now I'm going to go to my offensive samples, which we provide you with a couple plays. So that way you guys can utilize this. So now if I go to my run samples and I double click spread twins inside zone versus over, it's going to automatically drag and drop that in here as well. If I want to make an adjustment to this, so if I select an object and hit the edit button, it's going to open up that play in the back side. And the reason why this is so helpful is now on the left side, we've got our PQD stencils. So now if you need those run blocks or anything like that, you've got them listed here. Or if you just want to flip the entire play and go Control H, if you close it and save it, it's going to automatically update it in your box. But then the other part of that is if you connect your plays to a server or a Google Cloud with your staff, you can essentially update that play on the cloud. And now anytime anybody double clicks spread twins inside zone versus over, it's the version that I just adjusted and created. So now I can double click the power versus over. I've created that. We give you defensive samples as well. So if I go up and I go to my pressures folder and I go over NCAA cover 3 versus doubles and double click, it's going to drop it into that third box. Now I'm going to take that levels pass concept that I had before, or just a 66 levels, double click. Here's that pass drawing. So now I've created these objects and dropped them in. The next thing that's really big is with you guys using your shapes and your stencils, if you click on the left side of the screen and drag and drop, you've essentially got to create a new stencil. With our software, if I double click trips left 59 flood, it recognizes that you're still using that 4-up landscape, and it's going to automatically fill it in for you and then drop it in. And now you've just got to make your webinar install adjustment up top to make that change. And now you've double clicked and you've dropped that in there. The next part of this is, well, coach, I want to take this to a PowerPoint slide and I want 5 slides because I've got 5 plays. Well, if I go up here and I go to the export button, transform to template, we've got a 1-up LDT PowerPoint. Now, if you hit the export button, it's going to take each one of those drawings and convert it to its own box. However, it's going to enlarge it for you. So that way you guys can get out of, you guys and girls, excuse me, can get out of the copy paste world and having to resize your drawing and adjust your font. We go ahead and we knock that out for you. And now if I just pull up this PowerPoint, which should be done, this is drawing number 3. So if I go to drawing 3 for PowerPoint, I pull it up, I should have 5 slides that have all adjusted and enlarged based on my drawings. So when you talk about just Pro Quick Draw, the biggest thing that we're trying to help you guys and girls with is just the time saved by having to do redundant tasks of copy and paste and resize. You know, this is something that we firmly believe in and think it's definitely something that can help you all. The other flip side of this is that if I created a document and if I wanted to draw big, you could essentially draw your plays as a larger sample. And let's say if I drop in 4 plays here, well, if you want to create your presentation, you're creating it on the front end, and then you can work reverse in terms of, well, I want to create a handout for my players. So if you go up here to convert template, And then you choose your drop down, and I want a 4-out P. And then if I go up here and I just change the file name, I'll drop this on my documents tab as a 4-up handout. Hit OK and hit convert. We're now going to convert that drawing for you. So now, boom, 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 you can drop those in. And now you've got a handout for your players as well. And you didn't have to print 60 slides out because that's how your presentation was. So those are just some of the quick details that we think are really beneficial, can really help you. The export feature is big. Navigating and putting your library on a cloud for all of your coaches to access is really big. I knew I blew through that really quickly. One of the questions that popped up is how did I put that template on there? We've got a couple templates, and I just copied and pasted it on there. So, Coach, whoever that was, if you'd like to email me, you're more than welcome to do so. But just wanted to give you a couple nuggets right there in terms of Pro Quick Draw. Andy, do you have anything you want to add right there?
Kevin, just go through, just make sure those 5 questions in your question answer that you hit them all. Just maybe you did.
All right, got that one. Where is the Visio stencil at? You've seen it before, but it's not on your Visio screen. So there should be just a little drop box here on the left side of your screen. If that's not there, I'm not 1,000% sure where it would be. That's always just been there on the left side, but there's an arrow that you can expand and kick out, and then that'll be your shape section. And then if you just go to more shapes and then my shapes, you can choose ones that you've already created, or if you guys would like, since it is 8:59 and most of you guys are still here, if you're interested, let me know and we can email you the stencils that we created tonight. As kind of a thank you all from us to you. So that way you can get rolling on your playbooks and have a nice little stencil that you saw how it was created, and then you can adjust that on your own. So once you get the email, you're just going to download, and then the location you want to put that download is going to be in the documents folder. And then there's a My Shapes folder that's going to have a green label on it. If you double click in there and you paste it in, once it lives in the Documents My Shapes folder, you'll be able to go to More Shapes, My Shapes, and then select it from that drop-down menu right there. I'm going to post my email up here again. It's kevin@proquickdraw.com. You can always go to our website, and then in the Visio webinar section, there's a button that says Email Host, and that'll kick you right to me.